Sancho to score. No mistakes this time.
That is a rocket.
Royce and another fantastic goal by Marco Royce. Haaland's volley is beautiful beyond compare.
Das Wunder von Dortmund. Foulspiel von hinten an Götze.
Needs to lay it off. We're going to shot away. Oh, what a goal!
Welcome back to Dortmund Dispatch. Today I'm joined by Ali, and we're breaking down Dortmund's 1-1 draw against Bayern Munich. This match was at home. Second year in a row, we played Bayern Munich at home in the first half of the season. Second half of the season, we are away again. A little rigged, but, is what it is. So how was your weekend, Ali?
Weekend was fine. I'm just getting over a bit of a cold. I was pretty happy overall with the game. Something obviously we'll get into, but yeah. How about you?
Well, I definitely would have taken the result on the weekend, holiday weekend here in America. So pretty fun. Always good to see family. Always good to see Dortmund take a big lead against Bayern Munich, but some things in the second half are, again, just, it feels like very preventable. But first, do we want to talk about the drama and get that out of the way?
Let's do it.
Yes, they should stop the game for a head injury. Yes, Sane should be sent off for elbowing a player, but also those incidents alone are not necessarily why we dropped points in this match.
100%. At the end of the day, no big excuses. I do agree. The head injury to Zule should have stopped the game, and that incident with Sane, I believe it was with Gross, right?
Yeah.
Weird decisions from the ref. I felt like he was good for the majority of the game, and then towards the end he started to let too much go, so to speak. But yeah, overall, like you said, if you told me 1-1 before the game, I'd take the result.
Yeah, I think he called a very consistent game, the referee. It just got to the point where Dortmund's strategy was just to kick the ball, run, and hope you got a whistle. And the referee did a very good job because he consistently didn't call the easy, silly bait fouls where you just kick the ball past the guy and run into them, and it's a foul by the letter of the law. But the referee is at his discretion to call it or not, because all these cannot be called fouls, and all of them can be called fouls. And if you call everyone a foul, it's going to make the game very stop-start, and Dortmund really wanted to do that, especially at that stage of the game. But the referee, from a very early point, made it clear that he wasn't going to be doing that. And I think he called a very good game, and you can't complain about not getting foul calls in the last 20 minutes, because it was the same thing all game. You can't, as Daniel Malen, just kick the ball past the center back, run into him, and expect it to be called a foul, because it hasn't been a foul all game. And we'll talk about Daniel Malen later, but there's several times where that was clearly Dortmund's plan, and the only fouls that he was really calling were the through the back stuff on the center forward. So maybe going a bit more traditional, getting Maxi Bayer into that front two earlier, that to me makes a bit more sense. Even though it's not necessarily the type of football I like to watch, it's probably more effective in that instance than trying to release your wingers very fast, because no fouls are getting called, and that makes it very easy for a defender. And you can't criticize the referee for that, because the referee's number one job is to call fouls consistently. And so if you're going to not call a ton of fouls, you have to do that very consistently, or it would be harsh on the defenders. And we had some of our own fouls that, I think, probably could be called on another day. Like, I was a little bit surprised he did call the one in the free kick that eventually leads to their goal. But again, like, that's a bit different because it's very close to the area and you want to discourage that type of behavior. And, like, should he stop the game for the head injury? Absolutely. Like, that's a rule for a reason. I've seen whistles get blown for head injuries when the person got hit in the ribs and holds their face. And this guy very clearly got hit in the face with a ball. Some insults for the defenders not tracking runners. And I think that's like a little fair, but it's also the same thing we just talked about where like we didn't know how to get out of our own third. And when you get stuck in your own third, I think that's going to happen against the team with Bayern's quality. It's not necessarily on the defenders not tracking as much as not knowing how to get out of our own third.
Yeah, fully. I think in the case of the goal, I was just surprised that there wasn't a conversation with video assistant refs, just to let them know, like, hey, like he really did get hit in the face. The game should have been stopped. I don't know if he would pull it back, things like that. It definitely should have been called on the spot. But I
don't think that gets called by VAR because it's literally the referee's discretion. Like he's supposed to see the guy get hit in the head or holding his head, and like I think they should punish players when they don't get hit in the head and it's very clear and they just start holding their head to try and stop play because that is a safety issue.
For sure.
In this instance, he very clearly gets hit in the head. The referee definitely sees it. But you can't call it back on VAR because it's a referee discretion thing and it's not a foul. It's not an offsides. Like, this is not something you can take a goal back for.
I just feel hard done by it. Like, I just wanted some justice from the situation because it's like it's not cool. And even if if you let the play go on, Musiala, his position is where Zule would have been. You know what I mean? Like, that's his area of the pitch. So it was just kind of like, I guess, unfortunate is the best way to describe it, where, we were kind of slow to react because I think everybody was expecting the call. But all in all, that wasn't the reason for the result. Obviously, it's a goal. But I mean, in terms of like, we invited so much pressure and, not switching the tactics, I think, from a little PTSD from what happened with Madrid, sooner than expected. The switch with Bayer to the middle, I really wanted to see that because we saw, and I'm sure we'll get on, into all this, but we saw a chance where Bayer played Sabitzer through the middle, and we didn't see enough runs past Guirassy from the middle, and I feel like once we saw that and we know that there's space, we should have put Bayer into the 10 role. I'll put that in quotations because he'd be a second striker really. But yeah, I don't know, man. We could have won it. We could have won it. I'm so like, yes, I'll take the draw, but we could have won this, and it's just better game management is all I really want moving forward. This was better than other games, and like I said, I'll take the points, but we could have won it.
Do you see any parallels between Shaheen's quotes post Madrid saying he wanted to get the ball into the wings faster once we had that lead, to in this match having some similar problems trying to get the ball into the wing very quickly and hit our wingers in space right in between their like fullback and center backs? Did you see any kind of like issues with that not necessarily working? Or
I think so there's two things in that. There's one, the quality of pass and the quality of the wingers. So with Jamie Bino Gittins, you can play that pass and you can have trust that he's gonna really try to get on that ball, and obviously did score. Maxi Bayer was in a bit of a tougher situation against Davies, very, very quick. So he was just essentially pinning Davies as high and wide as possible, trying to create space for, Sabitzer to slide in or Guirassy, but Guirassy also was very, very occupied. The thing is, if you have someone like Malen, who isn't exactly the greatest dribbler or isn't the type to really get in behind, and you have some young guys on the bench who are faster, who will want to run into that space. Like you said, is there parallels? I do see the desire to play it, but if the person who would be at the receiving end of that ball won't really relieve pressure or be able to complete the pass, that's it feels like a wasted pass, right? Because there's always another way around it, where we can play short and play around them if needed. But yeah, having someone like Malen try to receive, because what was it, the last 20 minutes that he played, that was 17. All right, last 17, I just remember him receiving the ball, running into a wall or starting to go backwards, and I don't really remember a positive forward play. And I don't want to harp on the guy, but
we don't need to harp on him right now.
Yeah,
because we have a star. For those of you who are new, we have a star and dud of the week every week, and Ali might know who I'm about to pick. We'll see. He'll get first pick, so I don't know. Maybe he's not going to be on the board for me, but there's two guys we kind of got to talk about in that section. But yeah, let's move on. So we have a post-match quote here. We would have liked to have won, but that's also the aim. But you also have to be realistic. We had to defend for the last 2 or 3 minutes. I saw a very good Dortmund team, but in the end, you can also talk about the fact it was unfortunately deserved. We did a good job. Bayern made some changes after the break and cost us energy. They pressed us for long periods of time, but then we also had 2 counter-attacking chances through Jamie and Sabi. If you capitalize on them, you leave the pitch as a winner. This is from Shaheen, I believe. So what do you kind of think about that?
I mean, we defended for a lot more than 2 to 3 minutes. I think the game plan, especially in the second half, was just park and launch long balls. So Guirassy was in a very physical match against Upamecano mainly, who wasn't really giving him any space, who was really, on his back. If he turned, he was getting hit. And then the wingers were obviously over time. If you're having them run up and down, they're gonna get tired. So the game plan either should have been changed or tweaked, because it wasn't 2 to 3 minutes. The majority of the second half, we're just parked in our third, and hoping to get a break through the line. So I don't understand that part. He is right that we did have some chances and we should have capitalized, and there were positive signs, but I think he's minimizing what really happened.
Yeah, first half it was 5 shots to 4. Now going up against Bayern that early, I think I talk about game state a lot on this podcast. You're gonna concede more shots. That's pretty much how it's going to go. There's very few teams in the world that can take an early lead against Bayern and then have more shots than they do. But in the second half, we're talking about 10 shots to 2. Kobel had a very, very good game, but there's not much you can really do at that point. And you're talking about defending for 2 or 3 minutes. We were defending for 45. Sabitzer's chance is one of the best chances we had of the game, if not the best. But if you're talking about potentially scoring a winner, you need to create more than 0.6 XG in a match. So I think that's a little disingenuous, and I really hope that behind the scenes that's not his thought process, because creating 2 shots in 45 minutes is not good enough. It's really not. And we can talk about like Sabitzer not necessarily having the pace, even though he gets like on the end of that like best chance of the half. But if you're talking about trying to get guys in behind, um, you might be able to create like an extra 2 to 3 chances by allowing Maxi Bayer to be in that role and bring on a guy who can do a bit more of the midfield stuff from that right wing, or just like a guy who can press, like I don't know, a Cole Campbell per se, who I believe started with the second team this week. I could be mixing that up, but like we needed a guy who could come off the bench as a winger and press to replace Sabitzer. Because to me, everything he did in this match, I think I would prefer Bayer to do. He was like the pressing striker in a front two. I'd prefer Bayer in that role. Bayer had 6 tackles and interceptions in this match. Sabitzer, not quite so many. So then in terms of like attacking and getting in behind, like I'm again gonna prefer Maxi Bayer there. He's a lot faster. He's better on the ball. He's a better dribbler. Like we're not talking about shooting from 25 yards. There's literally nothing in that role that Sabitzer is better than Maxi Bayer at. And if you just look at like the defensive contribution, like 6 tackles and interceptions from a guy who's a striker playing out of position at the right wing compared to a guy who's a midfielder playing in midfield, technically I guess you could say as a 10, getting 2 tackles and interceptions, and he's supposed to be like an 8 come 10 in a lot of roles, and he's just not capable defensively to the extent you would want, and he's not necessarily giving you the stuff a 10 would want, or you would want out of a 10 this season. So that there's really enough said there.
I fully agree. That chance that we're talking about came at the 60th minute. So I was hoping that, they would see that and say, hey, you know what? Let's bring on a winger who will just be playing, balls in behind or balls into the strikers in this case, right? After moving Bayer to the middle, because if you have that chance once, you can definitely create it again in some way, shape, or form. So why not put the excuse me, the younger, faster, more energetic player in that role and just tell him, look, Saru is gonna drag a defender. You just attack the space. Get in behind him. Just keep eating up ground, and the ball will come eventually. So I don't really understand how it took them so long to realize this. And even then, right, when, if I'm not mistaken, Sabitzer was subbed out. He brought on who was it? Reyna, and he kept Reyna at the 10. Reyna's also not a player who's going to run in behind. Now, if you moved him out wide and just told him, look, swing crosses, okay, sure. I can live with that. But he didn't do that either. And he got subbed in like in the last minutes of the game. So it's not like...
Quite literally in the 90th.
There you go, yeah. So I don't really understand. Like, I feel like if you smell blood, you gotta go for it. And that chance was pretty indicative that we can create that again, but what did you do to facilitate the scenario to happen again? Nothing. So I think Sabitzer doesn't belong in that role. I think if you play him as an 8, he's much more useful. He just doesn't have the legs for this type of game, for this type of attack. Now, is it him? Is it the system? Whatever, that's a whole other thing. But yeah,
I think it's the qualities he has, because I think he's... Shaheen is almost looking at it as like he is so much better as a footballer on today's date of like December 2nd, 2024, Sabitzer is night and day a better footballer than Duranville, than Cole Campbell, and he has achieved so much in his career compared to all of them. However, in the roles he's been used in this season, when he hasn't, aside from like the 2 or 3 games where he's played 8, and he's worse at everything you would want an 8 to do compared to Gross and compared to Mecha, who's played there a couple times this season. Like, he's so much worse at everything at the 8 position, and he's so much worse even than Sean at the 6 position, because Sean can occasionally defend. Like, Sabitzer doesn't have a position in a double pivot. I said it when we signed him. And the other issue is that he's essentially getting paid too much money to stick on the bench every single match. And that's kind of what his role should be at this point, because he just doesn't have the qualities that Borussia Dortmund needs from the positions he's being kind of shoehorned into. And to me, that's the biggest issue, because the amount of space that would just be opened up by a faster, more dribbly player that's not going to get caught when they're running into space is just so much more important to the side than what Sabitzer gives you in terms of technique and, like, I want to say, like, leadership. Like, he has quality. It's just the side is not set up for him. We talked about him playing as like the 8 alongside Brandt, and I almost feel like that kind of handcuffs, like, it helps the side in many ways, but it also handcuffs Brandt, who's very clearly over the last 5 years been a significantly better player. Like, Brandt can create chances in the way that can get him into any side in the world, not necessarily as a starter, but there's every side in the world can use a player with Brandt's creative level. Whereas you saw when Sabitzer went to some of the better clubs, Manchester United, not necessarily better, but at least like Bruno Fernandes can create a ton of chances. Sabitzer can't play there over him because he's so much worse creatively. And creating chances is just such an important trait that he's really like missing in a lot of ways. And that's like just so invaluable to a side, and it's something that he can't really do with his lack of pace, and so it's really constricting to the side as a whole. And I think just having a player with the right attributes can really open up things in a lot of different ways.
So then, if you were Shaheen, what would you change from the starting lineup coming into this game? Like, would you um, not have him at all in the starting lineup and then bring him on, or would you keep it the same and then once a second half comes around and you want those legs, you'd then take him out?
I think it's hard because there are injuries to guys like even Gio Reyna. Like, if he was like, we know the quality he has. If he's had fitness from like, even call it like the end of September till now, if he'd been fit for 2 full months and he's been a contributor for 2 full months, then maybe Reyna. But with the injuries, no. With the injuries to Duranville, no. So I think you kind of have to start him in this match. I think his place in the squad is an issue. I mean, I said it when we signed him. I was like, I don't care what the fee is. Like, the fee's not that much. Cool. Like, we're paying him $7.5 million a year. He could have been rotting on the bench at Bayern and like getting loaned out year after year, with Bayern still paying a portion of his wages. And instead, we took on his contract, the $30 million he was owed, and now he's a detriment to the side because you can't really, like, he's good enough to get into games, and he was excellent last season. He overperformed all his expected goals, his expected assists, especially in the Champions League. But he creates a hole in your side because he has to take up X amount of minutes because you have so much money invested in him, and he's not necessarily a true midfielder. He's not necessarily a true number 10 because we talked about the lack of creativity. Yeah, so it's just like a situation where he misses playing alongside Forsberg in the two like tens coming inside, and having a guy next to him with 20 assists in a season. Like that's kind of what you need, and it's not what Dortmund can provide. Gross has been a massive upgrade there, but also like because you have him, you can't play Sabitzer in his natural position, so you're essentially playing like 13 million euros a year for two guys that have been fit pretty much every game this season and can't play together almost. I don't know.
Yeah, it's I think you do have to play him. You're definitely right considering the situation.
Oh, but sorry to finish answering your question because
Yeah, go
I didn't
ahead.
get there. The minute you take the lead, like first minute of the second half, I'd pull him for a winger. Any of the kids.
100%. I think we were talking about it. How we wanted either Duranville or Campbell on, just to inject some pace. Because we were becoming a little too predictable. Where like they knew that we were gonna look for Jamie Bino Gittins on every counter, and that's kind of why he was taken out. I think it's just like his legs were just getting tired, and the issue is the player they brought on is not the same. Like he's not someone who wants to run him behind and take on people. I just want to say how Bayern, first of all, losing Kane is not easy for them. But what did you think about how everything was just Musiala? Like obviously, Raisani was trying and not succeeding, and Tell. Oh, you know what? Before we get to Musiala, what do you think about them starting Tell?
That was definitely a surprise for me. I just want to first go back to Jamie Vino Gittins.
Sure, go
Another
ahead.
reason to sub him in this match is he hit 1,000 minutes in across all competitions this season. Pretty recently, if you include the cup, he's at 1,160 something minutes. I'm not going to do the rest of the math on that, but last season he was at 1,300 minutes in all competitions, and like yeah, some of the underlying statistics are a little bit down in the per 90s. Last season he underperformed his xG, whatever. He's overperforming it this year, obviously. But like that's another reason to sub a guy like that and just getting the fresh legs of like Duranville on, even if he's gonna do the exact same thing. Just makes a ton of sense with Bayern. Like Harry Kane, they were very lucky that he was fit for so much of last season. This is a guy with consistent, like minor to like not medium severity, like lower body injuries. So maybe it's just like the type of soil in Munich has kept Harry Kane fit for so long. Maybe it's like the lack of intensity he has because he doesn't have to work as hard at Bayern. Whatever it is, like this is something that's been coming. It's been inevitable, especially for a player who's aging. I'm not sure his exact age, but he's got to be over 30 now. He's logged a ton of minutes, even if he was a bit of a late bloomer.
31.
Like you can't really be surprised about it at this point. Um, yeah, 31 years old at this stage of his career with his injury history, like it's been coming. I wasn't necessarily the most worried about him because 5 penalties in 11 matches coming into this will do a lot to inflate your goal scoring record, but it doesn't impress me. We know my thoughts on penalties, so yeah, Harry Kane got injured, like whatever, it happens. We also had a player get injured, so you can't even say, and I would argue that a defender is a bit more important, uh, because that type of chemistry and all that is just so much harder to develop and come into a game. Whereas as a striker, you just get to play a kind of free role, you get to do your thing, but it's neither here nor there. Let's quickly get into the injury. So Valdemar Anton will be out for Gladbach and Barcelona with a slight muscle fiber tear. I believe it was the injury he just came back from. Excuse me, shout out Shaheen and our medical staff for just kind of running him into the ground immediately.
Right away.
Anyway, yeah, so let's go into our star and dud of the week real quick. Who's your star of the week?
My star, and it might be the same guy, I'm not gonna lie, because I was glazing. If you remember in the text, man, Schlotterbeck. Wow, what a guy. He was immense. Every chance that he can get a toe to, he was there. He was very much a leader that we needed, and I was beyond impressed. And I've been vocal about how good Nemecha is getting, so I do want to give him a shout out. But my star is Schlotterbeck.
Yeah, I said he's getting to the point where he's might be getting some generational shouts. There's not many guys who can do the majority of your ball progression and then create chances in the final third. In this match, Nico Schlotterbeck happened to lead the team in key passes.
Unreal.
While also putting in an incredible defensive shift. Two different partners in the back line. Didn't really matter to the guy. He was just getting it done because he could. It's just, he's so press resistant. His passing range is unbelievable. Not his best match as a passer, but I think that's a lot down to how deep we were in this match. And he wasn't necessarily able to assert himself in the same way because he wasn't stepping up for free. But like, this guy is so involved defensively. He's so involved in the build-up. Like, this guy is far and away the most important player to Borussia Dortmund. Tied with Maxi Bayer, second team high in tackles and interceptions per match. Passing with progressive passes, second team high with 4. Attempted 53 passes. That's most on the team. Comfortably ahead of everyone else. If you look at players outside of Kobel, he's ahead in passes by almost 20. Or no, he is ahead by 20 of the next highest on the team in Pascal Gross. So, like, this guy is the number one target every team is pressing, still finds a way to get on the ball, still finds a way to do things with the ball. Genuinely such a complete player. Talked about how he added aerial duels to his game this year, because why have a weakness when you could just have none? So genuinely impressive. So impressed by him this entire season, even though he did lose his only aerial duel.
I thought I was blazing.
But yeah, I got the shirt on today. I got the Nico Schlotterbeck jersey on, my favorite player. But I'm going to talk about my star of the week now. And it's Nemecha. Like, there's nowhere else to go with this. This guy ran the midfield for the entire match. He put on, quite frankly, a clinic. Bayern decided to press him, and he decided to walk by their entire midfield time and time again. I don't know what how much there is to say about him. Like, in terms of the passes attempted, it's not necessarily like the best where you would want it with only 33, but like, that's again gonna come down a lot to tactics and the guys around him more than him, because every time the ball was played into him, he was just so secure. The pass completion percentage is trending up, and that's been his like one weakness as a player, where like I wasn't sure he could come into a possession dominant side. And I just really got to shout out our co-host Pedro, not on this episode obviously, but he said that this guy's traits would lead him to be a very good six. I'm not very good at seeing how guys translate to different positions. And somehow he's gone into a deeper role and has been asked to progress the ball more and has gotten more efficient at doing so and has gotten more defensively solid and is just looks so complete right now. I'm seeing a lot of like Pogba comparisons. To me, that's not the guy. Pedro would also like this one. It's I think Musa Dembele, the former six for Tottenham, because that guy was just so elite as a ball carrier. Not the best passer, but was still very good at it, and had a banger in him. So that's my comp for Nemecha. I think that he's been incredible. He's so fun to watch when he's playing like this. The touch and the dribbling ability is just it's so fun. It's so unlike Emre Can, who I think at this point has comfortably been relegated to second choice at the number 6 position. So that's a positive. But Ali, who is your dud of the week? Let's get negative.
All right. Okay, so I'm gonna choose a Savitzer because I think you want to go in on the other guy. But I think I expected more from Savitzer. A guy with his experience, and his IQ of the game. I wanted more offensively, in terms of runs in behind Guirassy, because there was no space created, pardon me, for our striker because nothing was played through the mid, and I feel like you got to finish that chance. I know it's one chance, and he had to run so far, and his legs are tired, but
it's 0.25 xG, and he made it 0.32 on post shot, so you can't really blame him on that.
I'm not blaming him. I just wanted a goal.
You want to know what you can blame him for, Ali? I know you're not a pass accuracy guy, but if you're a midfielder, and we're talking 4 of 12.
Oh, that's bad. That's bad. Oh, that's so bad.
You got Nemecha running the show in midfield, and that's one of the 3 guys he's in there with. If you're looking at why Dortmund can't possess the ball in the middle of the park a bit more, you have to start by looking at the biggest culprit. And yes, he's playing he's pressing out of the 4-4-2, but you expect to see a guy like Florian Wirtz will often be in that highest role, dropping in as the 10 to assist in midfield, and that guy isn't very efficient on the ball, and he's obviously one of the best in the world at this, but Sabitzer is he's so far off that it's quite frankly astounding, because you want to see him drop in to get in these little tight rondos with Gross and Mecha,
exactly, yeah,
and whoever else is in there to help, because you're looking at your strikers 4 for 12 is a bad striker game passing.
Mm-hmm.
You compare to Maxi Bayer, 7 passes completed of 11. That's striker numbers, and he's giving you striker stuff. Whereas Sabitzer's not necessarily giving you that striker stuff, and it's 4 of 12. And Guirassy in this game was very isolated still, 9 of 17. So he's not getting on the ball. And if he is getting on the ball in some ways, because he led the team in progressive passes received with 4, but he's clearly not making anything happen from those positions.
No,
because
not at all.
4 for 12 passing, get on the ball. You are a midfielder. It's do midfield things.
Exactly, yeah. He the point I was going to make, and I think that rant summarizes it perfectly, which is I just didn't see him enough. Defensively, obviously, right? We love the legs. We love him trying to press, and trying to cover space and things like that. Okay, great. But offensively, like there's a lot of weight in that position. Even if you just come in, into certain pockets, one touch pass, even if it's straight back to the person who passed you the ball, it's rhythm. It moves their defenders around, and you just keep it moving, keep it flowing, and there just wasn't enough off-ball movement from him, and I needed more. That's really why I wanted Bayer to move to the mid, because I needed more energy behind Guirassy, because there was no space for Guirassy. There was two strikers, and they were both just trying to bully him, kick him, push him, all these things, and there was no like relief, right? You can't play off of Guirassy if there's two guys on him. So yeah, I needed more. I needed more. Maybe, his legs are tired, all these things, whatever, right? Things behind the scenes, I don't know, but I was not happy with the performance. What about you? Who's your dad?
He is a tireless runner. Like, he does press a lot, but he's also like bad at it. Like, for the amount of times that he presses guys, he's not winning the ball. He's not he's not catching a guy as he receives the ball ever.
Are you saying he's a busy idiot?
I don't necessarily think so. Like, he had to be effective at one point, because like he played for like the multi-club energy drinks for so long, and everyone there can press, but maybe he's the guy that just like carries guys to make it easier for others around him. But I think that kind of gets exposed when you get to a bit of a higher level, because everyone needs to be able to do everything well. Not everyone needs to be able to work hard and run lots of miles. And he's very good in covering like total distance. Like, he is an incredible athlete, but at a certain stage, like, you don't want a marathon runner on your soccer team. You want a guy that is a bit more of a hybrid between performing sprints at a rapid pace and performing like long distance running and covering a lot of ground. But I'm going to get into my dud of the week, and it's Daniel Malen. Time and time again, like, I have to say the same things, because like, at least Sabitzer is working hard. And you can very clearly see his commitment to helping the team win. I understand that Daniel Malen never was asked to press when he was at PSV, I guess. And he's just never learned to do so for Dortmund. And I guess that's on like the coaches when he first arrived. Because it's clearly too late now. Like, his agent has come out and blatantly linked him with Arsenal and Barcelona today. There's not a chance he is going to either of those two sides, because Hansi Flick loves to press. Daniel Malen does not. In this match, like, Maxi Bayer, 90 minutes in, has put in an absolute shift, sprinting back. Daniel Malen walking back. You are on the pitch for 15 minutes. You need to be performing sprints for those 15 minutes, because you're not asked to play for as long. And it's just time and time again, like, you can't say much about him in a positive light in a match like this, because if Dortmund don't have the ball and aren't creating chance after chance, he's not really a useful player. So if you're looking at miscontrols or dispossessions, Daniel Malen, despite only being on the pitch for 17 minutes, had 2 miscontrols, twice dispossessed, and like, the only player with multiple was Serhou Guirassy, and we already talked about how isolated he was. Malen was playing out on the wing, had fresh legs, was running up against Sasha Bowie, who is not the most impressive right back since arriving in the Bundesliga. So granted, he's not running against tired legs, but you would like to see him like pull off and get the ball in space and run against someone who hasn't or has played more than 20 minutes of the match. And he was unable to do that. He was unable to kind of do anything in this match. Yeah, it's you need winger things from wingers, and time again he has failed to do that. And every time I point it out, it's like, oh, but he's gonna score a goal, and it's like, yeah, but the team is gonna concede more goals because of him, and they're going to create less because the goals he's scoring, like, yes, he has a very high talent to get on the end of chances, but there's more to the game than that. And like the reason so many of these analytically focused sides are more successful is because they have surpassed the 1990s logic of goal is good, and they start to understand where goals come from. And that style of player he isn't a guy that will create or prevent goals from the other team. So even when he's scoring, he's not necessarily helping the team at most efficient manner. But I will say, like, I feel like when he scores, he presses. But if you have to score to press, and you score 15 goals a season, and you play 50 matches a season as Borussia Dortmund, you're talking about a guy who's gonna press for you 30% of the time. So not really helpful. But let's go into our next topic, and this is picked by the biggest Marcel Sabitzer defender I know, in Brian, our producer of the show. So he asked, is it time for Dortmund to part ways with Marcel Sabitzer?
And I'm assuming I'm Brian in this situation.
No. You just have to answer as yourself.
Okay. I think Marcel Sabitzer has a lot of qualities that I want to keep around. He's very committed, and he's always like we said, he's always running. He's really trying to give his all, put himself and the team in a winning situation. Will he have bad performances? Sure. At the current way that we're playing, I don't know the best position for him. I do unfortunately think it is in the double pivot, but he would need to change some things. He's also 30. How much can he change? Things of that nature. But I do think he's, you want guys that are committed, and he's very, very committed, it seems. And I keep him over Mullen. Let's put it that way. Because he plays like he cares, and I really like that.
I can see where you're coming from, and if he moved full time into a backup 10 position and as my sixth midfielder, I'd be a bit happier about it, or even as my fifth midfielder. But if I'm looking at the squad construction, if everyone's fit, Mullen is not playing. So that makes him a lot easier to sell. And the same can be said of Sabitzer. And you're looking at 2 years left on the contract, 15 million after this year. And if I can get any fee above like 5, if I can get like 5 million this year, I would take it, because you're talking about clearing so much in wages. I can then take like a punt on a guy who is going to work very hard, is going to be on a third the wage, and that will basically cover like me loading an actual like backup left back. I don't necessarily think I'd do it in the winter, because I don't know if like Watkins ready yet. I'd like to see him get some more time. He started and played the first 45 for the second team this weekend. Like, I think next year at 20 years old, I'm gonna like Watkins at the 10 a lot more as getting regular minutes. We'll see coming out of winter break how much a part of the first team Watkins is. I think that if he shows that he's capable of being like 75% of Marcel Sabitzer right now, I think that's honestly good enough to just keep going forward with the guy that's been here since he was, what, 9 years old, that grew up as the biggest Marco Reus fan you could imagine, and has already shown some like really fantastic abilities in a very, very tiny sample size for the senior team in the Bundesliga. And there's not a ton of guys that have shown that at 19. So I think you're really just waiting for him to be able to take the fourth midfield role. Or I think you could also do with like a minimal fee for Sabitzer. You clear the wages, you get in another like hungry young kid who's like a mediocre prospect, maybe not ready for a ton of minutes, but you can essentially have him kind of split those minutes with Watyin, and hopefully one of them comes good. Hopefully both of them come good. Like I just think that kind of makes things a bit more settled, because you have your first 11 midfield guys and you have everyone else. Bringing in like an 8 that can play 10 but is a bit better at 8 would be ideal, because you need more minutes at the 10 space. I just think the wages, if you can get off the contract, even with a minimal fee, it's so valuable. And essentially do what Bayern did to us, but to some random other team.
So
Yeah.
to summarize, what you're saying is, and if I'm wrong, let me know. We're better off getting a fee now and giving other guys chances rather than having him be a backup to a backup. Is that essentially?
Well, I think he'd still be the backup, but I think that I'd rather have like Watyin be my backup and bring in another guy for 5 to 10 million.
Mm-hmm. Is there anyone in mind?
I don't necessarily like have a name specifically, but there's like a lot of like cheap midfield guys you can kind of take a punt on. So you're looking at like Lyon this year having a ton of financial troubles, potentially getting relegated. They have some interesting guys in their academy that you can take a look at. So like Mohamed El Arouche is in their academy, I believe. He's a decent player. Like he might not ever be Dortmund first team quality. Like he's just a guy that's out there. You could go look at like a Barcelona cast off. Like, okay, you're not good enough. Like we've done this before. We have a proven system here, where we took like Mateo Morey. He got a lot of first team minutes. Obviously, an unfortunate injury there, but like that's not out of the question. You could go into any Premier League academy, like go look at Chelsea's academy, see who's on a contract expiring pretty soon. Say, hey, look, we have a spot for you in the first team. Like there's a lot of different ways you can go there. You don't necessarily need like we just brought back Mislintat, who's like known for finding these guys. We were linked with Baturina and another guy from Zagreb after this past match. Like,
What about Pablo Torre?
Go and get them. Pablo Torre, I think he's not necessarily defensively good enough as an 8, but you know, maybe that's your like backup 10 and he's your 5th midfielder and Watyin's your 4th and you're good there. So I don't hate it from that perspective. Like I think doing that from a financial perspective could bolster your squad in certain areas, and allow it to be better, even if you're getting like 10% worse at the 10 and your depth is a bit worse in midfield. We also have like the most highly rated player in our academy is a 15-year-old number 6, Musa Kaba. Like this guy is dominating the U19s at 15 years old. Like there's a very good chance he's going to be a first teamer in the next 2 years. So like you could fill some of the minutes that way. I don't
So what you're saying
necessarily
is there's
think
options. There's options.
yeah, I'm saying that like I'm okay getting a little bit worse and weakening like an area of strength right now, which is our midfield depth, in terms of improving like the number 10 position, and just decreasing the wage bill overall so we can add wages elsewhere, like decreasing the wages in the midfield, getting a little bit worse there, and balancing out the wages elsewhere because Remy Bensebaini, like t- the amount of yellow card accumulations he's getting, like he's on pace to get like 2 or 3, and he's our only fit left back. Julian Ryerson's injury history is trending in the wrong way, and I think a large part of that is because he's the backup left back and the starting right back. So like there's so many different, like you need to loan in a left back because the buyback on Tom Barotha isn't active for another year. Financially, you don't want to commit to a guy when you probably have a guy who's going to be a better option in 12 months time. So like literally you cut his wages, you've replaced them with a left back and a cheap midfielder. And I think like you're a little bit worse in midfield, but your squad is more balanced overall.
So take a hit short term, but in the long term, it should pay off.
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily a hit short term. Gross would be a very old starter. But in the short term, you also might get better because your squad is more balanced throughout the squad. So I just think that like it's a bad allocation of resources to be spending such an exorbitant amount on wages for a guy that's not very good and doesn't have a home in our side. I think he could do very well in Italy in a 5-back system because that'll allow him to do a bit less defending in the midfield, and just covering ground is all he'd really need to do. And I think like some of his shooting from outside the area could really, really help him there.
That's fair. I wonder what Brian would say.
Hey guys, Brian here. Sorry I couldn't be on the pod this week, but I did want to drop my 2 cents on the whole Sabitzer situation because I know the guys had a bit to say on it. And surprisingly, I don't think I'm going to be disagreeing with them. And the reason I say that is because I know Sabitzer is a player I like, and the guys are very much aware of me being a Sabitzer fan. But considering whether or not Dortmund need to be separating with him or not, I think that's a decision that has to be taken closer to the end of the season. Mainly because, at the end of the day, there's still a lot of games to be played, still about half the season to go. And we've seen what Sabitzer can do, and how important he was last season. So there's always time for players like him and players like Brandt, who's also been someone that, some people have been calling for possibly seeing him leave at the end of the season. There's time for these players to actually play a significant role still. But at the end of the day, if we're talking about Sabitzer in current form and Sabitzer, not really stepping up to the plate, I do think it would be best, particularly because of the financials, for Dortmund to try and find a solution with that. I also don't think that I'd like to see Sabitzer as I guess we could call him, kind of like I guess kind of like a luxury substitute is the word that I'm kind of looking for here. Um, with that sort of situation, if we bring in another midfielder or something, first off, from the financial standpoint, it's not great to be paying that much as we are for him, just to see him play sporadically. But also, this is the type of player that I do think is a competitor and would want to, continue to play wherever it is that he is come next season. So in the event that Dortmund don't see him as part of the project, I would like to see him go somewhere else and be able to actually show his talent and showcase what he's capable of in a team where his, I guess, skills would be a bit more appreciated. Not saying obviously they're not appreciated here, but once again, if we're talking about a player of his quality, just having him sit on the bench would be a bit, a bit depressing in my opinion. So once again, if he doesn't follow up and show the quality that we need him to show for this side, come the summer, I don't think it's unreasonable to think about, possibly parting ways and seeing him go somewhere else where he could possibly revive the tail end of his career and play a bigger role. But just to add the caveat onto there, I do think there's still more to see from him this season. I don't think we're like it would be jumping to conclusions to say like, oh yes, like definitely sell him. But depending on the circumstances, that is something that Dortmund will have to consider.
Do you want to talk about the Zagreb match at all?
Personally, I'm already past it, so
I don't remember a thing.
Me neither.
I think Jamie scored a worldie.
Yeah.
I have a
He scored
recollection
two,
of that.
no? He scored two?
He scored two?
Hold up.
I believe it.
I gotta
think
check.
so.
I gotta
That sounds
check now.
right.
We'll
Oh,
just
that
give,
was so long ago.
Man, hold up. Zagreb, 3-0. Oh, no, he scored one, Ben Sebaini, and then Girassi in the 90th. There you go.
Oh yeah, I remember the Ben Spaini goal.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, 3 points. We'll take
Yeah,
it.
three points. We're well on pace for top 8.
Yeah.
Well above Bayern. In the
Well,
only
Madrid
league table
too.
that matters. I don't even know what that club is. They're terrible. So next up we got Gladbach, and we're sounding a bit like an outro, so we'll try and get through this quick. Their form: 2 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw on their last 5. That is the exact same as us. This is an away match, correct? So we could be looking for our first away win. Their performances, like I said, a win against Bayern would have me convinced. I am starting to get convinced that Nuri Sahin is not terrible. So yeah, I think we win this match. I'm gonna go like we sometimes like tear Gladbach apart. I don't think we're gonna be doing that in this one, but I think it is gonna be very convincing. But I don't think we score like 4 or 5, which I think we've done 3 or 4 times like in the last 6 or 7 matches against them. But I'm gonna go 3-1, and not Kleindienst is gonna score.
Okay. I'm going to go 2-1 for us, but it'll be a late winner, I feel like. Ben Sebaini, just to upset everyone. But yeah, I don't know. I'm always hopeful on away games.
Emerson from the spot.
Yeah, is he back? Is he gonna be back?
He is.
Oh, okay.
He's back. This is his second match that he served.
Dear God. I don't see a place for him at the current time in the starting 11, so I wonder if he's gonna force him back in.
Center back.
I mean, we have Zula, and him slotting in was pretty good, I gotta say. I always liked Zula. But yeah, I think 2-1 is a fair result. I think we are the better team. We just need to start showing that away from home. Like our away form has been atrocious, and we need to improve on that. But yeah, Sahin in still, always Sahin in.
Nicky Sula this match. I would love nothing more than for him to score a goal. I'm so tired of like Nicolas Sula being fat shamed when he is in better shape than like 99.999% of all living people. Like this guy is a unit.
He's huge.
Like he's jacked.
Yeah, man. And he's
and-
still fast, man.
Like he is pacey. He is very like he should not be that big and that good on the ball.
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
I don't understand the criticism. Honestly, I think I'm in the same boat in that regards because he looks fit. And I think people are just finding something to hate on because being fit doesn't look like one shape. You know what I mean? Like there is no one look to being fit. So yeah, no, it's just weird. It's just Twitter fingers. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
people just like to talk.
It's the people that don't show up to Sunday pickup. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm saying, right? It's the guys that get a gym membership after New Year's. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm not looking forward to that. Those people.
Oh man. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the game. I think it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully. Oh my god, I'm gonna be so hyped if Nicolas Sula scores after we make them up like that.
Yeah, 100%.
If he concedes a penalty, guys, you know who to blame. It's me. So is there anything? Actually, let's get the Bundesliga fantasy update. We had some topsy-turviness, I believe, this weekend. It was a very low point weekend. Gotta get it loading on my phone, trying to buy time. Not a good week for yours truly, but Tom Rotha was back. Had an excellent week. Was involved in the first goal. For the only goal Union Berlin scored. And it kind of makes sense that they did not score a goal while he was out injured. But Dortmund Dispatch League, retaining the top spot is Edward DC 4. We have the SA Germans in second. Ryu Sanugi is in third. Heinz of Bayer is in fourth. And Bayern Warsaw fans has been falling down fast, and he is now down in fifth, with FC Clever Football Puns hot on his tail, just about 50 points back. So we're going to be rooting for you this weekend to overtake Bayern Warsaw fans, who has really stumbled since his hot start. And I moved up one spot this week, now fairly comfortably in 13th, but I'm looking to crack the top 10 soon. How far out am I? Oh, only 400 points, so that's doable. If I simply don't forget to set my lineup again and leave in an injured player and have 4 guys on the bench. But is there anything you want to plug before we go?
Dortmund Dispatch, everywhere. 1D in the middle for X or Twitter, whatever you call it. We're also on Blue Sky, so if you're on there, we have an account on there too. My personal one is VZN Sports, Vision Sports, where I just stress about Dortmund and Barca. So follow us everywhere, and we'll see you next week.
And if you want to know how Ali is doing in Fantasy Bundesliga, have you cracked top 50 yet?
I've cracked open the app. That's about it. That's about it. Oh man.
Well, that'll do it for us. Have a good one.
Peace.